I am Alexandra Grant, and my name means power in this city. At 48, I am the CEO of Grant Tech Corporation, a name that, in the world of technology, is synonymous with innovation, dominance, and ruthless efficiency. My office sits on the 42nd floor, a glass fortress overlooking Manhattan, and from here, I control an empire built on microchips and ambition. But outside of this empire, I am just a mother. And I have only one child, Mia Grant. Mia is 23, fresh out of Stanford, and bright enough to run a satellite company herself. I wanted her to succeed on her own merit, away from the shadow of my name. So when she began her summer internship at Grant Tech, no one, absolutely no one outside of my most trusted personal attorney and my husband, knew that the bright-eyed, entry-level intern was the sole heiress to the Grant Tech fortune. I made her promise. She agreed. She wanted to prove herself. That was the plan. Mia would climb the ladder using her own two hands. A clean, fair fight. The plan ended one evening in late June. I was in the kitchen, reviewing an acquisition proposal, when I heard the front door open. My focus was instantly shattered by the sound of shuffling feet. Not the usual confident stride of my daughter, but something hesitant, broken. Mia walked into the light. Her face was pale, drawn, and utterly devoid of its usual youthful glow. Her eyes, usually sparkling with digital-age curiosity, were red and puffy, the swollen aftermath of uncontrolled sobbing. The CEO in me, the one who handles billion-dollar crises with a steady pulse, vanished. All that remained was the animalistic protective instinct of a mother. "Mia, what happened?" I demanded, rushing to her side. She couldn't look at me. She leaned against the counter, shaking slightly, and whispered a confession that felt like a physical blow. "Mum, my supervisor tried to ruin me." The word ruin hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. It was a word that didn't belong in the clean, polished world of Grant Tech, and certainly not near my daughter. My hands, which had signed hundreds of contracts worth millions, balled into fists. The fury that rose in my chest wasn't cold CEO anger. It was raw, blinding, prehistoric rage. It was the feeling of a boundary crossed, a line of protected territory violated. In that moment, I knew two things with absolute certainty. First, Mia was profoundly hurt. Second, the battle had begun, and I was going to wage a corporate war of total annihilation. Grant Tech Corporation is not just an office building. It is a meticulously calibrated ecosystem. We employ over 20,000 people globally, and the competition for senior roles is brutal. A high-stakes game of corporate chess played by the most ambitious minds in the industry. Mia's internship was structured to be challenging. She was placed in the hyper-competitive marketing department under the management of Ethan Cole. Ethan Cole, 42 years old, department head of global strategy. On paper, he was perfect. A golden boy with a Harvard MBA, consistently hitting his targets. He was admired, even idolized, by the upper management for his sharp mind and seemingly flawless corporate manners. But I knew the types. In this environment, I had learned to distinguish between the truly competent and the politically skilled. Ethan was the latter. His reputation was a finely crafted veneer, polite, charming, and cooperative in public, a viper with subordinates. He was known, quietly, through whispered warnings in the corridors, to be utterly ruthless, willing to exploit, intimidate, and step on anyone beneath him to secure his next promotion. Climbing the corporate ladder wasn't enough for Ethan. He had to burn the rungs behind him. I had placed Mia in that department deliberately. It was a trial by fire, a chance for her to learn how to navigate the inevitable politics of a Fortune 50 company without the safety net of her surname. But even I, Alexandra Grant, the woman who had personally hired Ethan Cole 6 years ago, hadn't expected him to be stupid enough, or arrogant enough to target my daughter. I took Mia into the sitting room, wrapped her in a blanket, and told her to start from the beginning. My voice was low and steady, the calming tone I reserved for high-stress negotiations. She needed to know I was in control now. Through stuttering breaths and fresh tears, Mia explained the systematic psychological warfare her supervisor had waged. It started subtly. Ethan had overloaded her with work that was not only complex but impossible to complete within the given timeframes. She was working 18-hour days, weekends, pulling all-nighters only to be told the next morning, "This isn't up to standard, Mia. I expected more from a Grant Tech intern." When she finally stood up for herself, citing department policies on intern workload, the mask came off. Ethan's threats became explicit. He told her he would give her a failing, damaging evaluation, a black mark that would not just ruin her internship, but effectively end her career before it began. In this industry, a bad review from a major firm is a death sentence, but the worst came yesterday. When she refused his demands to stay silent and work until she collapsed, Ethan escalated the attack. He falsely accused her of stealing internal, highly sensitive marketing data, a grave corporate crime punishable by immediate termination and legal action. He said he had proof, Mom. He said I was trying to sell client lists to a competitor. Mia wept, burying her face in the blanket. He pressured me. He told me if I didn't sign a confession report, claiming I was having trouble managing the workload and fabricated data to cover my failures, he would make sure I never worked in the technology industry again. He said he would call every major firm in Silicon Valley himself. Mia, though terrified, had inherited my spine. She refused. She looked him in the eye and said, "I didn't do it. I won't sign a lie." She was immediately escorted out of the building by security, suspended pending an internal review, and told to not return to Grant Tech property. I listened to every word, every painful detail of her humiliation and fear. I did not interrupt. My mind was no longer consumed by rage, but by an unnerving, perfect clarity. The anger had solidified into something cold, sharp, and entirely focused. He messed with the wrong person. He had drawn a battle line in the sand, unaware that on the other side stood the woman who commanded the entire army. The predator had become the prey. I stayed calm, not for Mia's benefit. She was asleep now, exhausted from the trauma, but for mine. I needed control. I comforted her with promises of protection and absolute justice, and then I went to my home office. The next morning, I arrived at the Grant Tech headquarters at 7 a.m. as usual. No one in the building knew the silent personal war that had been declared the night before. To them, I was just the CEO, focused on Q3 earnings. But the moment I sat down, I was no longer Alexandra Grant, CEO. I was Alexandra Grant, Chief Investigator. My first actions were subtle, surgical, and designed to leave no trace of my personal involvement. I didn't call Ethan Cole. I called Charles Vane, my Chief Information Officer, a man whose loyalty was built on 2 decades of mutual respect. "Charles," I said, my voice low and devoid of inflection, "I need a full, independent audit of all employee activities regarding Mia Grant, the intern in marketing for the past 6 weeks. Retrieve all related data, including login times, file access logs, and communications. Flag any unusual activity originating from Department Head Ethan Cole or his assistant. This is classified, Project Chimera. Only you and I are to see the raw data." Charles, knowing my tone, responded only with a crisp, "Understood, Alex. Consider it done." Next came physical evidence. I tasked my head of security, an ex-Secret Service agent named Ken, with a targeted review. "Ken, I need all camera footage, specific to the marketing floor for the last 3 days. Pay particular attention to the area around Ethan Cole's office and Mia Grant's workstation. I want to see every interaction, every body posture, every minute detail." Over the next 48 hours, the truth unspooled, stark and undeniable, laid out in digital logs and silent video feeds. The data retrieval from IT proved Ethan's accusation of data theft was an elaborate fabrication. Mia's login records showed no access to the highly restricted client files. However, Ethan Cole's records showed he accessed and modified those exact files just hours before he confronted Mia. He had created a log, an internal report, designed to look as if Mia had attempted to cover her tracks by corrupting the files. A corporate death sentence, signed by a liar. The camera footage was even more damning. It showed Mia, pale, desperate, but shaking her head in refusal, being forced into his office. It showed Ethan leaning over her aggressively, his face a mask of patronizing menace, violating company policy on personal space and professional conduct. And finally, it showed her suspension, the sight of my daughter, head bowed, being escorted past her peers by uniformed security. My blood boiled anew. Then came the final crucial step, confirming the pattern. I reached out to a small hand-picked team in HR, individuals I knew valued ethics over politics. Pull the records of all interns or junior staff who have left the marketing department under Ethan Cole in the last 5 years, I instructed. The truth came out, sickeningly predictable. Ethan had a history. Mia was not his first target. She was just his latest. Several junior employees had resigned abruptly, citing intense pressure or hostile environment. 2 former interns had been given severely negative evaluations for poor judgment after they had dared to challenge Ethan's unreasonable demands. He used the internship evaluation, a powerful tool of corporate gatekeeping, as a weapon to bully and control. Framing Mia for corporate espionage was merely his most egregious cover-up attempt to date. I remembered every threat Mia had repeated. I looked at the evidence, the doctored files, the menacing video, the paper trail of victims. My mind was clear. Ethan Cole hadn't just made a mistake. He was a liability, a bully, and a danger to the integrity of my company. I didn't confront him immediately. Confrontation is an emotional response, and I was far past emotion. I was now operating with the precision of a master clockmaker. I needed the mechanism to be perfect, ensuring not just his removal, but his total, irreversible destruction. I scheduled a private, highly confidential meeting in my penthouse conference room, away from the prying eyes of the main building. The meeting was attended by only 4 people. 1, Daniel Hayes, Chief Legal Officer. A brilliant, cautious man who understood the need for airtight procedure. 2, Eleanor Vance, Head of HR Ethics and Compliance. My point person on all personnel matters, a woman with zero tolerance for abuse. 3, Marcus Chen, CFO, the man who signed the checks involved only because of the financial risk Ethan's actions posed to the company. 4, and me. I laid out the files, the logs, and the video stills. The room fell silent as they absorbed the totality of Ethan Cole's calculated malice. "This is Project Chimera," I announced, leaning forward. "Ethan Cole is a threat to our company's culture and reputation. We are not dismissing him. We are, professionally, dismantling him. Daniel, I need the termination notice, the immediate police referral paperwork, and a draft lawsuit for libel and professional misconduct ready for signature. Eleanor, I need the internal investigation report confirming the violation of every single item in the Code of Conduct, retroactive to his date of hire, citing the pattern of abuse. Marcus, ensure his access is terminated instantly and all future bonuses are withheld pending recovery of any corporate damages he may have caused." "And the police referral, Alexandra?" Daniel asked, his voice low. "Are we sure we want to expose this to law enforcement? It might create PR issues." "He fabricated corporate espionage documents against an employee. That is a crime, Daniel. We report every crime every time. The PR issue would be covering it up." My team was loyal and efficient. Over the next 24 hours, the final pieces of the trap were set. I didn't want him to know what hit him. I wanted him to walk into the final act of his own corporate tragedy, blind and confident. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 4 p.m. the following Friday. The official memo cited an urgent discussion regarding structural adjustments to the Global Strategy Division and a review of key personnel performance. Ethan Cole walked into the 42nd floor boardroom precisely at 3:55 p.m. He wore a crisp, tailored suit and a smile of arrogant anticipation. He thought this was his moment. He had heard the whispers that the CEO was restructuring, and he believed he was being called in for a promotion, a reward for handling the troublesome intern, Mia Grant, so efficiently. He nodded politely to the board members, accepting their murmured congratulations before the meeting even started. I sat at the head of the colossal mahogany table, in the CEO's chair. I wore a tailored midnight blue suit, my hair pulled back, every line of my posture conveying unyielding authority. I was the rock he was about to break himself against. The meeting began with brief pleasantries. Then, I bypassed the structural reports and looked directly at Ethan, my eyes holding none of the usual warmth of a CEO meeting with a successful executive. They were the eyes of a judge delivering a sentence. "Mr. Cole," I began, my voice perfectly level, carrying enough sound to fill the large room without effort. "Let's discuss the matter of Mia Grant, specifically the intern you falsely accused of data theft and subsequently suspended." Ethan's confident smile didn't falter, though a flicker of annoyance crossed his face. "Ah, yes, Alexandra. A regrettable incident. She simply wasn't cut out for the pace of Grant Tech. We have the confession report draft and the file corruption logs. I'm happy to walk the board through the disciplinary action, a clear case of poor judgment." "No, Mr. Cole," I corrected him softly. "You won't be walking us through anything." "I will." I pressed a button on the control panel beside me. The room's massive wall-mounted display, usually reserved for quarterly projections, lit up. The screen displayed a single massive photograph, Mia's resume, the standard, generic one she had submitted through the portal. Across the top, in large, red, bold letters, I had typed 2 words. Ethan Cole's face went white. The colour drained from his skin so fast it looked like a special effect. He didn't just turn pale, he looked like a man who had suddenly realised he'd just signed his own execution order. He stumbled back, gripping the back of his chair. "Alexandra," he whispered, his eyes darting frantically between me and the board members. "Yes, Mr. Cole, my only child. I wanted her to succeed anonymously. You, however, chose to leverage your power against a young woman, a student, to destroy her career for the crime of refusing to work herself into the ground for your ambition." I didn't wait for his pathetic response. This was my stage, and the show had just begun. Let's review the evidence. Gentlemen and ladies, the board watched in stunned silence as I presented the full Project Chimera file. Evidence Block 1. The fabrication. The screen showed the IT logs. Mia's clean access records contrasted sharply with Ethan Cole's login at 11:34 p.m., where he accessed the restricted files and deliberately altered the timestamps to implicate her. He fabricated the evidence, Daniel, to justify a false suspension. This is gross misconduct. Evidence Block 2. The coercion. The video footage from the hallway camera played. The board watched Ethan's aggressive physical intimidation in his office, followed by Mia's quiet but firm refusal, and the subsequent humiliating escort out of the building. He created a hostile environment, Eleanor. A pattern of abuse. Evidence Block 3. The pattern. Eleanor Vance took the floor, detailing the anonymous HR complaints and the forced resignations of previous interns, a paper trail of 5 years of exploitation. Mr. Cole's actions are not isolated, they are systemic. Ethan crumbled. He attempted to interject a desperate, rambling plea. It was a misunderstanding. I was under pressure. The reports were inaccurate. I promise, Alexandra, I didn't know who she was. I raised a hand, cutting him off with the silence of my authority. I don't care if you knew who she was, Mr. Cole. I care that you did this to anyone. Your actions prove you lack the integrity, the judgment, and the ethical standard required to lead a janitorial closet, let alone a global strategy division. I stood up, my gaze locking onto his horrified, pleading eyes. You tried to destroy her career. You tried to force a vulnerable subordinate to sign a lie that would have blacklisted her from the entire industry. Now, I am ending yours. The board members, a group of powerful men and women who understood corporate law and moral hazard, didn't need further convincing. They looked at the evidence, then at the man, trembling, sweating, utterly exposed, and then back at me, their CEO, who had just demonstrated an absolute command of the situation and a terrifying capacity for cold justice. I called for the vote. The motion is to terminate Ethan Cole's employment immediately for gross professional misconduct, ethics violations, and fraudulent behaviour with cause. The vote was unanimous. The silence that followed the affirmation was deafening. Mr. Cole, I said, walking to the end of the table and placing the signed termination notice directly in front of him. You are officially terminated, effective immediately. Your access codes are deactivated, and security is waiting to escort you out of the building. Daniel will be in touch regarding the recovery of the company car and the details of your severance, which will be 0. But I wasn't done. The mother in me demanded finality. I slid a second sealed envelope across the table. This contains all the evidence, the file tampering, the coercion, the multiple testimonies. I have already handed a copy of this to the police and our corporate lawyers for a full criminal investigation into fraud and professional endangerment. This is no longer a corporate matter. It's a legal one. Ethan lost everything. His job, his meticulously cultivated reputation, his future bonuses, and likely his freedom. I ensured that the professional network was notified, quietly, efficiently, that Ethan Cole was permanently blacklisted from any reputable tech firm in the country. His corporate life, the one he valued more than anything, was over. 3 days later, Mia was formally reinstated to her internship. The company publicly announced that the suspension had been based on false and fabricated information provided by a former executive, and that Mia's record was not only clean but exemplary. The official narrative spread throughout Grant Tech. A bullied intern was defended by the fierce, ethical CEO. The CEO would not tolerate abuse, regardless of rank. Morale shot up. It was a perfect piece of corporate theatre, a powerful message of justice and accountability. No one knew the intern was my daughter. I walked into Mia's office, now located on a new floor, in a clean, brightly lit area, reporting to a highly ethical senior project director. She looked up, beaming. "Mom," she whispered, jumping up to hug me. I held her tight, inhaling the scent of her hair, the last vestiges of fear and humiliation, finally gone. "You proved yourself, Mia," I murmured. "You had the courage to say no." I just cleaned up the mess he made. I pulled back, holding her face between my hands. No one gets to hurt my daughter, not in my company, not anywhere. Mia cried then, not tears of fear, but of profound relief and pride. Pride in herself for standing up, and pride in the woman who had unleashed a corporate hurricane just to protect her. Later that evening, the office was quiet, save for the hum of the city far below. I stood at the enormous window of my 42nd floor office, looking out at the glittering lights of Manhattan. The empire I had built stretched out beneath me, powerful and cold. I ran a finger along the glass, the faint trace of my breath momentarily fogging the view. This company is my empire. It is a complex machine, filled with ambitious, sharp, and sometimes dangerous people. But I am the architect, the mechanic, and the ultimate operator. Mia is my only child. She is the only thing in this world I value more than Grant Tech. I let my hand fall, the reflection of the city lights catching the steel in my eyes. Anyone who tries to hurt her will face me. I had taught Ethan Cole his final devastating lesson, and the lesson was this. In the jungle of the corporate world, there are predators and prey, but there is always an apex predator. And sometimes the role of CEO and mother are one and the same. Thank you, my loves, for watching until the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the newest videos.